Hey everyone, Nick here, exclusively for Geek Force, and I am joined by sculptor, designer, puppeteer, and legend, Tim Clarke. Thank you so much for taking time out this weekend to do this with us, Tim. You've just done a private signing with us. Whew! A little bit starstruck. So, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get straight to it. Okay, so I've read that you took a puppeteering course in your senior year at the Pratt Institute. What career were you looking at doing? Did this cause a change in direction in your life? That's the first question.
Totally. I was majoring in art education.
Right.
And my sculpture was my art major.
Right.
And the class was very hard to get into. It was taught by Kermit Love, who was the guy who designed Big Bird and Snuffleupagus.
Right.
And Kermit had his own studio, and when I was getting close to finishing the school year, he said to me, "What are you doing after you graduate?" And I said, "Well, I'm looking for a teaching job, but there aren't any." Because at that time in the US, the baby boom generation was all out of school, and the newest generation was the smallest in US history. The birth rate had gone down dramatically. So there were no teaching jobs. And he said, "Well, why don't you come and work for me?" Well, I didn't have to think twice.
No.
It was just like, yes, great. Like, when? So I spent the summer painting his house. And then in the fall, I started working on puppets with him. We did a lot of puppets for TV commercials.
Yep.
And we did puppets for Sesame Street overseas, for Mexico and Germany and Kuwait.
Right.
And Kermit's start was in costume design. So when we weren't building puppets, we were building stuff for New York City Ballet, for Joffrey Ballet, all different dance companies.
So, what was your first meeting with Jim Henson like? You probably get asked this all the time, but I mean, when you took the puppets that you constructed to show him what was that meeting
all the
like?
Puppets that I had made while I was at Kermit's class.
Yeah.
And throughout that year that I was working with Kermit, when we didn't have work to do, I would just play around with different materials. And while I was working for Kermit, is when I made the fly hand puppet that fit on your hand like a glove that became Sectors.
Right, okay.
Years later.
Yeah.
So, it was about a year that I had been working for Kermit, and I went, the work was up and down, and I was always on the, verge of being not bankrupt, but I just had no money. It's like I was living at home and commuting into the city every day. And I was going to go to Kermit and ask him for a recommendation to go and interview at Muppets.
Yeah.
And I met him at Pratt. I was waiting for his class to finish, and he saw me standing in the hallway, and as soon as I walked in the door when the class ended, he said to me, "Tim, I'm so glad to see you." He said, "There's this new project starting up at Muppets, and I think you'd be perfect for it. And I want you to go up and interview with Jim." And I was like, is he reading my mind? It was just so outstanding. So then I had an interview with Jim a week later, and I just showed him all the work, and a lot of it was thinking about how to make puppets, not just do this, but using your hands. I had created a crab where my thumbs were connected to his eyeballs, so I could move his eyeballs in and out, and then my other fingers were his legs, and I had extensions off them. So Jim was just he said, "I really like the fact that you're thinking about how you use your hand and your body, not just, using your hand to do this." And then I had done a dragon where this hand was in his head, and the hump in his back was my head, and the opposite hand was his tail, so I could swing it around like this.
Right.
And so Jim said to me, you know, I really like what you're doing, and when can you start? And I said, tomorrow. You know? And he said to me, no, I have to contact HR. So why don't you come in next Tuesday and you can, you know, sign all the papers and stuff. I said, okay, fine. So that was how it happened.
That was how that happened. Yeah. So, okay, right. Your first job for Jim Henson was on the Dark Crystal. I'm right in saying that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was your first job with I believe that was your first movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So, can you tell me a little bit about the process of what you did and how long you were working on the Dark Crystal?
Well, I worked on Dark Crystal for 2.5 years.
Right.
With breaks to do stuff for Muppet Show and Great Muppet Caper.
Right.
We literally, when I started, the workshop for Dark Crystal had just started.
Yeah.
I think Wendy was there. Brian came a little bit later because he was still in England. Sherry Amott was there.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly everyone, but so we basically just started from scratch, and you know, Brian had sent a bunch of sketches, and we were working from Brian's drawings and playing around with different materials and seeing how we could do it. And then Dick Smith, who was a makeup artist who did The Exorcist and a lot of other famous films, came in and showed us how to use foam latex.
Right.
And so that was like the first time, as far as I know, that foam latex was used to make puppets rather than as a facial appliance. And you know, just we started sculpting and trying the material and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and then Brian would adjust. And this was the amazing thing, that Jim was so open to giving us the time to experiment. And you know, try different materials and explore using your body a different way to move a character. You know, so it was amazing. You know, and in a way, it was to my disadvantage that it was my first job out of college, because I didn't, you know, like, I knew it was incredible and special, but if I had known what I know now, I would have taken advantage of more things while I was there.
Because nothing's ever going to match that, I would have thought.
No.
Nothing's ever going to match that. So you, from the Dark Crystal, you designed the toys, which we actually we were talking about earlier on off camera. So you designed those for Aviva, I believe it was. Aviva Hasbro. Yeah, Aviva Hasbro. So was it an easy process going from designing the actual kind of puppets, if you like, going down to the kind of
that tiny scale?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember it being a difficult adjustment. You know, it's like the characters were so familiar to me, and of course that's why the art director at Henson said, you know, Tim, why don't you do these? And it was after I had finished work on Fraggle Rock, and so I just, you know, he said, well, I think you should obviously do the Mystic, and he said, do the Lance Rider, because you worked on both of them. And he said, then, and I don't have any way to do the Gartham, but why don't you tackle that? And I said, yeah, okay, fine. And the hardest part, I think, was the restrictions from Hasbro on wanting everything to come out of 2-part molds. So that was the biggest limitation, and getting used to making things so that they would part from, you know, a steel mold. Which after I sculpted the initial pieces in clay, I went up to Hasbro, and I was there for, I think, a month and a half. Working on them at Hasbro, and the guys who were experienced were showing me how to draft things so that it would release.
I see. So we've got a lot of the Funko Reaction figures that have been released kind of last year here.
Right.
You've signed a lot of those. How close are they to the ones that you did for Hasbro all those years ago?
there are so much more detail in these than that were in ours, because there's so many more parts to each piece. So the restrictions that we had at Hasbro don't exist in these toys.
Right.
I think they're exquisite. I think, and it's too bad that they're not going forward. That it's over.
Yeah.
But that's the toy business.
Unfortunately. So the Dark Crystal movie. I mean, it was your first movie. You spent 2.5 years working on it. As far as I'm aware, it was the very first movie to not feature a single human. It is the very first film to be completely nothing but puppeteered.
Well, it depends on whether you consider stop motion puppetry, like the work that George Pal did with stop motion puppets, and a lot of other European movies that use stop motion animation it's like some people, they're not hand puppets, but they're still considered puppets.
Yeah. Yeah. When you first saw the film for the first time, what did you think of it?
I was a little disappointed because there were so much heavy filters put on the cameras.
Right.
That the creatures themselves lost a lot of detail. I know when they had the traveling show and exhibition of the Dark Crystal creatures, people were amazed at the attention to detail that went into every single one of them, which you couldn't see on film because of the gels that were put over the camera. So that, I realized that it was done to create atmosphere, but I was a little disappointed that it wasn't as clear after having spent all that time and work
doing it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So once you've made the toys for Hasbro, and of course they'd never materialised, did they?
Right.
They from what I know, it was a combination of the Dark Crystal not actually doing that well at the box office.
But the movie hadn't been released yet.
No, and it was coming to quite late in the day as well, I believe. That's the toy line.
No, what happened was, as far as I know what happened, and I've heard different stories,
right,
that the movie hadn't been completed. The toys had already been made, right? The movie was going to theaters that year, and I think at Toy Fair there was an early release, I think in the fall, of toys by Hasbro of what they were bringing to Toy Fair in New York in February.
Yep. And
I went to that show. I saw all the prototypes, a whole line laid out, and what I heard was Hasbro just thought the movie was too scary for young kids, and young kids were not going to buy toys based on a movie that they couldn't even sit through, like that they were running out of the theater in fear. So now one of the art directors told me that Hasbro only agreed to do the figures because they wanted the Muppet Babies line.
Right.
Which I have a hard time believing, because the tooling cost just to do the Dark Crystal figures was a lot of money. So I think it's more that they just decided, and at that time there wasn't really, I'm sure there were adult collectors of action figures, but it wasn't like it is now, where everybody, I think now adults are collecting more action figures than kids.
Yeah, definitely more than kids. It's kids, it's iPads and that kind of thing. And it's
computer games. So.
25-year-olds up that go and buy toys now.
It might be. Although I'm hoping that will change.
The next question I've got is one from one of the Geek Force crew, and this is from Craig. Now he is extremely jealous that I am here and he's not, because the question that he sent me is, one of my favourite toys of the 1980s was Sectors. Right? I loved the hand puppet creatures, which the figures could ride on. How did you come up with them?
Well, it all came out of that fly hand puppet, which I made to go to a Halloween party, because I didn't like wearing masks at Halloween parties because you can't drink or eat if you're wearing a mask.
Right.
So I thought, well, what can I do that'll be creepy and cool for Halloween? So I made that fly hand puppet, and then I would just go over and like have it sit on people's shoulders, and they would like jump, and, and the reaction was so good.
That's brilliant.
So that's where it started. Then when I started working with Seven Towns and Maureen Trotto, who we developed Sectors together. When I went into Seven Towns, Larry Mass, who was the agent in New York office, said, "Oh, I really like, what you've done, that fly creature." He said, "We should put an action figure on the back." And that
makes sense.
Was where it started. And then Maureen made some more samples, and I was working a full-time job for a toy company at that time, so I didn't have time to make samples because I was driving from Brooklyn out to Long Island every day. And so Maureen built some more samples, and then Larry took it to Coleco, showed it to Coleco at Toy Fair that February, and they flipped out over it. So then we spent, I think, 3 months just doing drawings, Maureen and I just doing drawings of what we wanted the world to look like, what we wanted the characters to be, and that's how it started.
Am I right in saying that there were further ideas for Sectors?
Oh, there's tons.
That never came to...
Tons.
Right, okay.
And now, with it being reissued by Zika Toys,
right, so that's obviously
then
the next thing. Yep.
we are hoping to do the first wave of the original characters, and then the insect hand puppets after that to go along with it.
Right, okay.
And then the second wave of figures from the second year, which was never released.
Yeah.
And then Maureen and I have been working with a comic book company on developing new characters, because there'll be a comic book coming out soon.
Oh, brilliant.
But hopefully this summer, the first issue will be launched.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic.
There's a lot of things in the hopper.
Yeah.
And it's like they're always hoping, will this go forward, or is this just going to be another maybe? But so far it's good.
Are we talking? I've got to ask. I'm a retro action figure person, so I like 3 3/4. I like minimal detail, and I like 5 POA. But are we talking super articulation? Are we talking super detail?
It's based basically on GI Joe, the small GI Joe figures of 3 and 3/4 inches, 4 inches. But they're going to have. I'm sorry, I should have brought one of the cards, the promotional cards.
It's fine.
But so they'll have extra hands to change their hand position.
Yeah.
And they'll have all the original weapons and the shields and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But they'll have more articulation than the original Sectors.
Right. Okay. So what do you think now, if you look at toy sculpts now, so kind of, as to say, you get the super articulation, super detail. What do you think of those now compared to the stuff that was around in the 80s?
Well, I think people always remark to me how amazing they thought Sectors was for that time period, that they still remember it as being really outstanding work, which makes me very happy.
Yeah.
I think McFarlane Toys pushed that envelope.
Certainly.
And made the possibility of people realizing that you could spend the time and money to make more detailed figures. And there's just people are doing just outstanding stuff right now, and I gotta play catch up.
Gotta play catch.
Yeah, but in getting to learn how to do 3D sculpting on the computer rather than just everything by hand.
So your biggest hit worldwide was Boglins. I think I'm right in saying that.
Mm-hmm.
How did the idea for this guy come up? Because I had a Boglin, loads of people had Boglins. How did you come up with the idea for what is quite literally a gross rubber thing on a hand?
Well, it comes out of my work on Dark Crystal and working with foam latex. The original Boglins were foam latex that we presented to Coleco. They ended up dropping it, and then it went to Mattel. So The first Boglin, which I have on my Instagram, I have photographs of the first ones.
Yeah.
So I had done one large one which had the moving eye mechanism, which was different than what Mattel ended up designing.
Yeah.
But they tracked left and right, and they had a blink. And I had also made a little mechanism that you could grab things with his hand.
All right, okay.
And it was controlled by the end of his tail. So if you squeeze the end of his tail, he would grab things. But that was too expensive.
Why didn't that exist? Why didn't that exist?
No, but because the price point, it would have just driven it through the roof.
Yeah.
So, but I thought the design that Mattel did, that adapted for the eye mechanism was brilliant. It was better than what I had done. It was much more simple and straightforward and easier to use. So,
out of all the toys that you've designed, what's your favourite? On the spot, what's your favourite?
Boglins. Well,
Boglins.
And the Dwark Boglin, because it is so close to what I actually sculpted as the very first Boglin. I mean, you can see it on my Instagram page.
Yeah.
Is that it's the blue. I have the blue solid silicone rubber positive that I saved. It's deteriorated a little bit, but. And I'm thinking that hopefully now that I've figured out this new material, that I'll be able to go back and bring back the original ones, the original small one and the original Boglin that I sculpted.
That would be super cool.
It's one of the things on the list of many.
The list of many things I need to do. Yeah.
Many things that we want to do with Boglins.
Is there any toy that you have designed that's never made that you would have wished it had?
Too many.
Too many.
Too many. Being an outside inventor and designer in the toy industry is a very tough road to hoe. And unfortunately, I had 2 hits very early in my career, and I thought, oh, this is great. This is easy. I'll just keep doing this. And I would say one of the best was a radio-controlled monster that I had designed before radio control was affordable.
Right.
And I worked on it with one of the guys from Muppets who did the mechanism and I did the outside skin. And it used to, literally when Seven Towns showed it, it was just sitting on the table and the guy who had the radio control was in another room. And one of the guys from Hasbro was sitting at the table looking at it, and all of a sudden it went like this, and crawled across the table and tried to bite him. And he took his coffee and threw it all over the room. So he said, "Yep, we'll take that one." And they held it for 3 months, and then decided that it was not possible to produce it at an affordable cost. Whereas now it probably would be, but
you're probably looking at the mechanisms being pence now, aren't you? So.
It's hard to say if it would still be feasible or not.
So out of, obviously, I mean, you like you say, you designed the original Dark Crystals, you designed Boglins. Is there a toy out there that you've not designed that you've gone, I wish I'd done that?
I have to say, the work that Four Horsemen is doing
with Masters of the Universe.
But with their own line themselves.
Okay.
The sculpting is just so beautiful and brilliant. And then there's, like I'm doing the ToyCon UK show tomorrow, and there's a lot of guys who are coming up in that designer toy arena whose work I just find spectacular. Like I'm sharing space with John Paul Kaiser on Saturday and Sunday, and his work is so immaculate and so detailed. And I don't know if you've ever met John, but he's like this huge guy, right?
Right.
And you look at his work, and it's all this tiny, tiny little detail. And how does this huge man make such tiny little things?
Yeah.
But the painting detail on his stuff is And he did one of the Boglins for the show we had
Yeah.
at Clutter Gallery. And it was just such a different approach. I said to Josh Kimberg and Miranda, who own Clutter, you know, it looks like a Buddha because he closed the Boglin's eyes, and it just looks like he was sitting there totally passive and quiet and peaceful. And it was such a totally different direction than anybody else had taken. And then Dr. A, who is going to be at the show tomorrow too, he actually sculpted some of the original mini Boglins here in England, and he's doing really beautiful work. This whole line of toys is amazing.
I'm going to fire two very quick ones at you. So, what is your favourite creature in a film that you've created?
Oh, it has to be the Mystics. Although Traveling Man is a big...
yeah.
It's a big... I think in many ways Traveling Man is known more throughout the world than probably anything else I've done. It's amazing the email and feedback I get when I post, you know, pictures of him or me working on him when I was younger, and they say, "Oh, you did Traveling Man? I loved Uncle Traveling Man." He's like, so I think his reach is broader than Dark Crystal is.
And if you could have created any creature that you haven't created, what would it have been?
Oh my goodness, any creature. Gosh, I don't know. I would love to have gotten to do more special effects creatures after Dark Crystal. But having a family and a wife and kids, it's not easy to stay active within the film business because it's such an up and down career. So I don't know, there's so many things, like, you know, seeing the movie like Dragon Slayer and what else comes to mind? Oh, well, the recent work that oh gosh, I can't think of his name now. The Spanish director who did Pan's Labyrinth.
Guillermo del Toro.
Yes, his work, you know, the creatures that were created for that movie were just outstanding. And I was like, why did he call me? I would have been perfect for working that movie.
Guillermo del Toro, if you were listening.
Right.
If you were listening. That about wraps me up. I would just again like to say thank you for taking the time out to do the signing with us.
It was great.
Thank you for obviously giving us the time to do this.
Yeah.
And good luck with the show this weekend. And obviously we're excited that Boglin's. See, he's here. A new one. He's here. There he is. Look at him. There's a small one there as well. Look at that. So,
and they're finger puppets.
The
minis are finger puppets.
So there, I say it's brilliant that those are coming back. It's brilliant. We're going to see more from Sectors, and just good luck with everything. And thank you so much.
It's amazing. 30 years, it seems like, you know, all of a sudden everything's blossoming all over.
I know, yeah, it's great. Brilliant. Tim Clarke, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nic for Geek Force, signing off.